right. Thanks everybody for coming out to our Friday Live, the FM BetterForms community meetup. Um, it's not just about BetterForms, though. We do cover lots of other stuff, as you guys know. I was just mentioning before we got started, we're looking for presenters and content things to riff on. So if you have some suggestions, we're all for that. This month we want to talk about a little bit about Elevate FM. I want to just show you some new things that are becoming popular with N8N, MCP, A2A, AU, AGUI, and a few other related protocols that are kind of on the on the merge rise with the AI related communities, and how they'll sort of play in with us. All right. We're gonna kick things off pretty much right away here. And if Hassan, if you're good to go, we can just talk about some recent updates, and then I'll jump into some recent issues, and then we'll kind of carry it on from there.
I'm good to go. I'll share my screen over here.
Awesome.
All right. Big thing to note whenever checking BetterForms updates, we do update the changelog after every deploy. Over here, you can see all the new features, optimizations, and anything else that was added. One thing I'd like people to note is the D&D editor. We had a BF Public Sandbox class a while back in one of these Friday Lives using the D&D editor. I'd recommend anyone who hasn't tried it since to try again. What you can do easily is if you already have an app, what you can do is you can deploy it into your dev environment, and then you can just simply change the base code to version 3. And that's a good way to test it without breaking any of your existing code. Another thing to know is we've added some things in place to make it so when using the D&D editor, it feels a lot like the transition is a lot better between going from the old editor to the D&D editor. And I'll showcase this in just a second. So things we've done is, for example, a lot of people are used to using the schema. We have added, made it more visible. Before there's a lot of open attributes that kind of made it hard to look at. So we've added some changes in place here to make the transition easier. Additionally, you can now edit the schema from the D&D editor as well for HTML. This is just a list of things we've done to make the transition easier. However, you'd probably still want to use the builder over here, as we've done a lot of changes here to make it a lot smoother to use and a lot more efficient than just editing throughout the schema. Lastly, Charles is probably going to go over this in just a moment. Big updates we've been working on over the course of the last month or two is optimizations. We have been trying to optimize like the call time and the error people are getting. So far, we've mitigated it down to about around 50%, and there's going to be additional things coming in soon that Charles mentioned will bump it up to around 70%. So take a look out for that. All right, that's most of it for the updates. We did have the general, we did update the AI models as well. And additionally, for OAuth, you can scope to a single environment instead of having one OAuth per app. If there's not any questions, I'll pass it off to Charles to continue.
I'll just
Sorry,
go ahead.
Yeah, I have one question on the drag and drop the schema changes. I'm assuming you're like hiding the attributes that were a little bit more specific just to the drag and drop. Is there a problem cutting and pasting from a non-drag and drop? Will that not work?
No, that's a good question. So if you want to like copy paste code from a non-drag and drop editor into this, that works just fine. What would happen is when you go back to your page, the attributes will just get added in like on its own.
Okay.
So because the attributes are required for the drag and drop to work.
Yep.
But like if you copy paste code from like a previous example, it'll just work fine because when you enter it again, it'll just have the attributes attached.
Beautiful. Awesome. Nice work.
Just a couple things on those attributes. So what they're used for is they're used for internal tracking. And we did look at saying that we could potentially remove them for this UI. But the thing is, as the more and more we use the interface, the less and less we use this page. So it's a big lift for a potentially diminishing return. They do automatically get generated, as Hassan had said. If you paste an element that doesn't have an attributes tag in here, you'll notice, actually, could you open one, Hassan?
Yeah.
Just you'll notice they have UUIDs. These are automatically generated. So if you have one that doesn't have that there, it'll get generated again on the fly as soon as you load the page. Likewise, for compatibility or backwards compatibility between version 2 and version 3, they're automatically added into schema, and the schema is converted. One of the main differences between the schema, I'm just going to grab my pointer on the screen here. One of the main differences between the schema is the, where is it here? These elements, you notice that this says fields. The prior version 2 schema had this concept of groups, but groups were not nested, so they weren't. You couldn't nest groups, and that makes it very challenging to do more complex layouts. So now everything is our fields, and we have a field of type group right here. So in this particular schema, we have these fields. This is really one element that goes from here all the way down to here, right? And within that element, we have this section here, which are all the fields or the content of that particular element. This allows the nesting of groups. A couple other things that are also in here as well is visible calcs. Now you can do a calc on an entire group, so you don't have to individually hide elements. That makes life a lot easier for certain things. And I think that's the gist of the changes there that are different from compatibility
You'll
wise.
notice before, like when you clicked add attribute, it was kind of hard to see what options you had available. Now we kind of do have some options that are available. For example, I'm clicking on a group and I click add attribute. Visible will already populate here, so that way it's easier to use and you know what's available to you. We do recommend just using this over the old editor, just because it is going to make everything easier as you get more used to it. And we do have backwards compatibility with, we did make this cleaner to use if you know you're still stuck somewhere, you don't know what to do, and you need to go back here.
And searching too.
Yeah, because this always does have the search.
If you copy something out of this raw page schema and put it into the same page again, will it create new UUIDs, or will we have two?
No, you'll have to save the page and reload it currently,
Okay.
but that's something that we could look at if it became a thing.
I mean, hopefully we all moved to the drag and drop, but for us that still haven't got there yet. I was just curious.
Yeah. No, it doesn't rehydrate those IDs until you load the page. It does it on load.
Oh, okay. Also, are they dynamic? Do they change every time I load it?
No, they're
Okay.
persistent. So you do have to watch out for duplicates because we don't currently check for that.
Okay. Okay, perfect.
But if an element is missing, we have a conversion, right? Version 2 to version 3 code that converts not only the editor, but it also converts live apps. So you can take an existing version 2 app and run it on version 3 base code without touching and changing the schema. It'll remap it all real time.
Nice.
And
Also,
yeah, that one, when we do that, we basically remap the schema for groups and turn groups and nested elements. For example, we have a number of components that have nested elements, like for example, tabs, panels, list rows, those kinds of things. So those are all converted into the new schema.
Also, another thing to note, the AI assistant has received multiple updates as well as access to additional models for more uptime. So if you weren't using the AI assistant previously, try again. It should be even better. For BetterForms, it's already pre-prompted on our entire organization, documentations, apps, and everything. So it's a really good tool to use instead of having to go to another AI tool and having to pre-prompt it with what stack we're using. So try this again if you haven't. And yeah, that's all from my end.
You could also do it. There's a couple other kind of cool things. We don't have to demonstrate this today because we did it last week or last 2 months ago or whatever. But some of the things that the AI assistant can do is it can help refactor your pages. For an example, if you say wrap a group around these two elements or put these two elements inside a group. It also has some context of the element that you're actually editing at any given time as well. So if you say something like this, it knows that that's the active element versus There you go. We also do a little bit more precise injection of diffs. In other words, what happens is you notice that that happened pretty quick. Now there's a couple more technologies that we're going to be adding in soon as well. But right now we're just targeting that one particular object rather in your whole schema rather than replacing the whole thing. We'll eventually port that same tech into the HTML editor. So we'll just do a precise splice into the HTML when you're editing that as well. This can edit HTML just as well, pretty much as well. I would say about 80-90% as well as the actual HTML editor. That one is a little bit more tuned, not AI tuned, but a little more dialed in to be able to edit code within the HTML box. One thing it doesn't really realize, and this is something that I'm sure we can prompt out, is it doesn't always realize that it's sitting within a bigger ecosystem of items in the page. So if you have something open, like if you were to open up an HTML element, often you'll get like panels and drop shadows and things like that around there, which may not be desirable. So you can always just say to the AI to remove them.
One thing I wanted people to notice, if you weren't looking at my screen already, is the speed at which things are updating now. So for example, I said add an additional 2 lines to this, and then that was almost like instant. The speed improvement has been significant.
Yeah, and that's an artifact on the screen that shouldn't have probably been there. And this is one of the texts that we're going to end up changing. So it's kind of funny, like the whole history of AI, as you know, we've been pretty active, and I've been talking about this for about, I don't know, about 3 years now almost. And if you actually scan back to some of the Friday lives, I showed you some examples right when AI first came out about editing XML and how you can use AI right in FileMaker, and that was almost 3 years ago now. And one of the things that has changed is we have better tool use, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that later on. And originally we designed things we had tool use, but the tool use was kind of crummy. So we built our own mechanism for targeting tools. And then tool use came back, and we've switched some things to use more tools, but not everything now. So some of these, sometimes when you do see artifacts in there, it's because of we'll call it version 2 system of AI rather than a later one. This is something that's kind of neat as well, is you'll often see dynamic buttons and a little bit more dynamic UI. And this is something you can actually build right into FileMaker. And maybe if we get a chance, I can talk about that, how to build stuff like this, because it's really quite easy. And how to generate that type of dynamic UI if you're building any kind of an assistant within FileMaker itself.
So over here, like I asked a question, then it asks me something additionally, and then it can do everything like that. And it's going to give buttons to ask for more questions, just so it can give you what you need.
Has anybody used the buttons themselves? I kind of like them myself. Oh, this is something, there's a couple other new things here. This is some under the hood stuff. If you notice, there was a little bit of now it's giving some sample JSON. This is not an issue that's correct. Can you do me a favor, Hassan? Could you say, show me 2 cats and a dog? Yeah, you can hit new, or you can close it. Yeah, you can just open the assistant and just say, show me pictures of 1 cat and 1 dog, something like that. So this is you'll see the AI will do 2 function calls here, getting a cat, getting a dog, and now it's going to generate that response. So one of the things we've added is we've created a new streaming API in BetterForms, and it supports parallel function calls. Parallel function calls are when the LLM decides it needs to have some agency, some action to be able to control something. So in this case, what it's doing is it's actually doing an API call. It's calling a function, and I'll talk about functions a little bit later on today anyway. It's calling a function that is calling Unsplash. And because we said 1 cat and 1 dog, it's doing 2 individual searches, and it's returning a cat and a dog. Why we want this is when you're generating sample data, is it can adjust that sample data to the line item, for example, of an invoice. And I have a cat and a litter box and some food and things like this on this pet invoice, and it can actually generate the actual individual images that way. Not generate the images, but generate the links. We don't bother doing AI image generation because it's just generally too slow. So there's no reason for it for mock images. The other aspect of the function calls is we've given the AI a little bit more agency. So you can say it doesn't currently have, it's in the works, but it's not available in production right now, access to the repository history, but it does have access to all the other pages. So can you say, actually, could you just say what other pages are in my app? Or just say list all the pages in my app, maybe something like that. So you see getting a list of all the pages. I think we could probably add a force delay onto that so it doesn't go so quick. But that's all the pages in your app, right? Now you can do other things now with this as well. You can say, what is the I'm not sure if this is enabled in production. Let's try it. What is the difference between the reset page and the auth verify page? Or the verify page? Let's just see if this one here. So it fetched two. Hold on. Can you just wait a sec? I'm unable to reach users schema for recent verified pages right now, so I can't provide. I'm not sure what happened there. That feature may not be fully implemented in production, but it has access to other pages, so you can say things like copy the and you don't have to do this now, but copy the UI design on this page into this page, and it can grab the stuff from other parts of your app and site. So those are some new things that have come along that have just sort of snuck in there. The parallel function calls and the indication of function and a little bit more transparency to the user. It generates a dynamic image as to what it's getting. You saw it said getting one dog, getting one cat. That's all dynamically generated and merged in here as we send the function to the back end, and we also send the data to the front end. As with everything we do, it's from a dog food aspect, we've made this API available to you. The docs are there. I'm just actually in the process of updating them today. But you can use this streaming API already. This new version here is using a slightly different version. It's compatible with the three frontier models, OpenAI, Anthropic, and the other one. I can't think of the name. Gemini. Thank you. And it's compatible with all three of those. And we have the ability to dynamically, because you're making a call and you're effectively saying what model you're going to call, you can just pass in the data for each of those models. And by doing that, everything works seamlessly. So this is a really, really heavy lift if you ever had to build this from a scratch coding environment. Because to have to three different companies and have them all a unified input and have all the streaming and all the function calls works, it's fairly complex. So it's kind of a pretty cool thing. I think that's it.
All right, yep, that's everything on my end.
Awesome, thanks, Salas.
But yeah, again, if you missed any of those, the updates are in our changelog. You can just click on the BetterForms IDE, you can click help and then changelog under references.
Some cool things coming up. I know it's a big complaint that we don't have the big mega FileMaker. Well, they're not mega compared to other ones, but they're bigger FileMaker conferences, the 1,500 people size. But we have so many more conferences in general now, right? We have, over the course of the year, we have 7 or 8 different FileMaker events, and they're all 50 plus people to all of them, and they're all really, really good. So we try to kind of promote them and give back to the community. We were just at Elevate FM, that was in Toronto here. We'll touch base on how that went. Vienna Calling. Actually, I don't think we're actually an official sponsor here, so I should take that out. That's coming up next week. We're going to be there. So for our European developers, looking forward to seeing you there. Build, Grow, Learn is coming up in September. This is a business-oriented conference. It does have some FileMaker nuances to it, but it's not a FileMaker developer conference. If you're going there to develop your business, that's the one to go to out of any of them, though, because this is all people talking about exit strategies for business, talking about growth, talking about HR. Really, really good, good conference there. The full access, I think it was called full access. Full access is the pause on air conference. I don't have a card on here for that, but that's coming up too. And then, of course, this one just got announced just about a month ago, and it's Naples FileMaker Week. It's was formerly Rome FileMaker Week, but they're going to change cities because they do a lot of tourism mixed in there. So if you're looking for an opportunity to go to Europe and at the same time do some business-like stuff, this is a great opportunity, and we'll probably be going to that one as well. One I'm missing on here because I didn't have room is Engage You, and that's coming up that's going to be in Antwerp, Belgium. That was a really good conference 2 years ago. Sorry, yeah, I guess it was 2 years ago. And they alternate between there and in Sweden. And I think the Antwerp one was really quite good when we went. So out of order. I'm going to flip things over to Pearson, and a bit of a shout out to Pearson. He just did his first public presentation at at Elevate FM. And he's going to just do, I think, a little bit of an excerpt of what he's done there as well.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Charles. Yeah, I guess just to talk about my experience, it was really fun. I thought it was a really great chance for me to work on, public speaking and presenting my knowledge to a larger group and an in-person group of people, like I do on similar to Friday Live, but a little more formal, a little more prepared, I guess, long form. But yeah, it was just a really great opportunity to meet a lot of new people and see some familiar faces and get my UX corner out into the big world, you could say. Um, yeah, I guess for anybody who came to the conference, is there anything that maybe I could clarify more on or speak more about? Um, yeah, I guess I'm not sure what else to add other than just how grateful I am for the opportunity.
I see. Sorry, I didn't realize you presented everything. I put Pearson on the spot this morning by sending a message and saying, "Hey, you're presenting today." Um, how did you how did you find presenting in general? Like, was it a lot of work you think to prepare something, to prepare a talk?
I mean, it was more work than what I have put into Friday Lives because those are a little more casual and a shorter form. But this one, um, maybe it's, the pressure of these attendees having paid to be here at this event, and it's catered, there's food, and it's very formal. Uh, or I shouldn't say formal necessarily, but it's just it's more real than when I'm talking to my webcam. And so I think it went really well. Presenting my initial slides to the team last week or so was good for me to get some feedback on how to make it look more engaging and less like I'm teaching a class at a school or something. And then I had a great chance to meet with Shanda Bezic, who was in attendance. She was a public speaking coach that Alexis put me and all the other presenters in contact with. So
Hmm.
talking to her was really great. She gave me some techniques and some useful tips and tricks just to elevate my presentation even more. And I think that the final product turned out um, pretty good.
Did she make you do, like, when I used to take drama class, you go, yeah, she didn't make you do any of that stuff?
No, not quite that, but she did, she gave me some box breathing techniques just in case I found myself feeling maybe anxious or amped up before getting up there. Also made some suggestions on how I can practice at home. one thing that she mentioned that I thought was funny, or just, interesting, I guess, was that as I'm practicing, this isn't something that she suggested I do during the real presentation, but while I'm practicing, make some large gestures, maybe stretch out a little bit while I'm practicing. And I think she said that that was a good way to kind of reset your body and tell yourself that it's all okay.
Hmm.
Probably don't do your stretching during the presentation, but at least that's uh the 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 reason why you're doing it, I guess, just to reset your brain and make you feel safe while you're at home practicing.
I think I'm just looking at the group here, and I think about at least maybe 5%, 5 or 10% of people I've seen, maybe, or maybe a little bit less, have presented at something at some point. I think it's a great opportunity to really work on your stuff, to makes you think about whatever it is you're presenting. Uh, Try to encourage it and with everybody, not just on our team, but like with our whole community, because the opportunity to share that information. You think, oh, I just built this little tiny thing. It's, it only tracks recipes, but I can almost guarantee there's something cool in there. I've yet to see a presentation on something that, even though it was really, really simple, there wasn't a little tiny takeaway. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool the way he did that, or that's interesting how she laid that out, or whatever it is, that kind of thing. So lots to learn from that. This is our team here. I think I should be sharing this. A few people are absent. Three of them, Alex and Michael, and who else is not missing? Nelson. Sorry, yeah, brain fart here. I couldn't even think of Michael and Alex and anybody there. So anyhow, yeah. So they're missing. They were unable to attend. Quick thing. There's a little photo bomb right in here. This guy here, and he kind of bombed into our picture. I think we got another one of these coming up later on. So we'll just tell you a little about this conference, and we're going to spend a little bit more time sort of talking about this one. And the reason is because it's in our hometown, so we're kind of excited about that. And I'm hoping that we'll have this again. Although I do find it much more relaxing personally when the conference is not in your hometown, because you're just going back to your hotel and relaxing instead of shuttling around and doing different things. But it was a pretty decent turnout. I think about 50 people altogether. So a single track type event. We were sponsors there, and we gave away some I think nice swag. And if you're winning of the swag draws today, then you'll receive some different stuff as well. The conference started off with Wimmy did a talk a little bit on server performance, go figure, and there's some takeaways from there. One of the biggest ones that we've done it already, this optimization. I'll just mention this quick. We've done this optimization already with some of our stuff, and we have a little bit more to do still to roll out. But it was to separate. We use a lot of perform script on server, so we run multiple threads. When you do a save in BetterForms, it has to do a bunch of things. It has to create a repository, so some type of a log of history, so you can roll back to it. It has to do the original save. We have to talk to 3 data centers and clear our. We use Redis as an interim cache system, so we have to clear that. So there's 3 concurrent calls. So that's 5 calls. I'm trying to think of what else. Might be something else in there too that we're doing. So maybe 5 or 6 calls. We're doing 5 or 6 threads spin up. And one of the things, and this is something that we've known about, everybody's probably in the community's known about, but it's something that in BetterForms itself, we've been having some performance issues lately. We've got about 70% of the mitigations deployed, but we got a little bit more, maybe 80%, got a little bit more to do over the course of the next week or so. And we're seeing that large payloads, because it's a big amount of writing, and maybe 0.5 megabyte or more, that is thread blocking or process blocking the hard drive to write. And by spinning off your other things that write, for example, we do event log. We also have an event log that logs all the status calls and things like that. So by spinning that stuff off into a separate physical file, there's no read write locking. or write locking, I guess it would be, because writing to the drive is single threaded. So that is a potential performance improvement that anybody could take advantage of just by throwing that in there. And that was probably that one little takeaway that he mentioned there. And it's like, oh yeah, never think of it like that. So I'm not sure if anybody ever encountered that at all, spinning off stuff into a separate file, not just for the size of the table, but for the purpose of writing to the drive concurrently. See, this is one of the things, Pearson, when you're presenting to a Zoom crowd, it's always crickets, right? So.
No, I do not.
This is, I don't know, somebody.
Yeah, sorry, I just thought of something, Charles.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't had to do that, but one thing that he mentioned that's important is that you definitely want to do that if you're logging, if you're doing like an audit trail or something like that, because that's always something that gets a lot of writes to it, obviously.
And it happens exactly at the same time. Well, almost exactly at the same time as the main write. Right?
Yeah,
if I'm updating
even
a
if you're doing
contact.
it in the same thread, though, in the same script, there's other people writing to that table at the same time as well, plus
Right.
listening.
So we do our audit logs in a separate file, but is he saying that that benefits the server performance because it's separate threads because they're separate files?
It's the drive itself
Yeah.
locks the file while it's doing the write. So you're basically having one write operation to the hard drive, to that particular file at that time.
Okay.
So he said to put it into a separate file, but if it's the physical hardware that's doing the write or doing the blocking, then I wouldn't think a separate file would make a difference. Separate drive, yes, maybe.
Got it.
But the separate file is supposed to be the first optimization there.
Yeah.
If I'm understanding correct.
Charles?
Yes.
I think we mentioned before, we had quite some difficulties with a very intensively hit file that was sharing local use on a network FileMaker server and online use by API calls from native apps, and we separated basically one file relating to the tables in the other file, and we got a pretty good performance upgrade there by just separating the file and having the API calls go to a separate file instead of the mother file that had the mother tables, right?
Right.
So you wouldn't say that would make a huge difference, but it did actually quite a lot.
Yeah, there's quite a few things that we've done a reasonable amount of research in the past month or so, dealing with some issues. And I'll try to get to some of that stuff on JSON today. But some really interesting things that I've never had to, as an engineer, you optimize later, right? Generally don't optimize right away, and because you could spend your whole life doing that. And as we started to optimize later, it's like, holy cow, I never knew this. Not that I made huge changes 5 or 7 years ago, but there's a lot of little things that can be done that way. I think these conferences and these kinds of talks are really, really valuable just for that, because who's got the time to experiment and do these A/B type tests and stuff? I won't bore you with some of the food there. There was a evening event. This is at, I think it's called Craft Beer Town or something like that. A fairly large establishment. Conference had pretty good food as well. It was shout out to Alexis to orchestrate that. Here's a picture of Pearson presenting. Right, you can put that on his LinkedIn or his Tinder profile or something. I'm not sure. And this was actually an interesting talk. Is it Charlie Bailey? Is that his name? I think. And he talked actually about, he talked a little bit about APIs. I think I got another picture in here later on, so I'll just jump to that. Here's our team and some other people from the Toronto area. You may know Doug Gardner, Matt Navarre, and a few other people. There's Jason here on our team and so on. So I won't go through all of these pictures. Right. This is actually, it was kind of cool because this is the first time we're a virtual team and we're, I don't know, 11, 12 people or so. And we've met almost everybody. This is the biggest time we've had everybody. And this is the first time Roger's been with us for 5 months or so, 4 months, something like that. And this is the first time. It was great to meet him as well. So, and of course, Christian Schmitz with his photo bomb. I think that's it. Hopefully there's nothing random in here. Just a few seconds of his Pearson's talk there. And I think, oh, a little promo for our swag. And I think that's the end of our slides here. I'm just going to check. Yeah, I think so. Alrighty. So for the people who attended Elevate, what were your thoughts? And are you comparing it, like, for example, maybe Jason, have you been to any of the the engages or any of those?
A long time ago, I went to DevCon. So yeah, I don't do a lot of conferences.
Would you go again?
To this one, to Engage, yeah, I would go again.
Anything you particularly do different?
Like anything I would suggest the organizers to do different,
Mm-hmm.
or organizer. I mean, I probably would prefer a more casual format, the unconference style.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
More audience interaction and kind of, well, I do it this way, I do it that way kind of
and
thing.
probably more technical. Like I mean, we didn't. I don't think we had a single person get out of their slideshow. Like there was no FileMaker on this, or maybe I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean,
So the conferences that are good for that will be, in theory anyway, it seems to be even the unconferences become slideshows. Right. I personally like live coding, and if you trip and fall, oh well, I don't, have an issue with that. But a lot of people don't really want to show too much stuff live. They're so worried that it potentially goes wrong, and it does. The demo gods always kind of screw things up, but at the same time, what are you going to do? Two events for that are the full access, and the old .fmp was kind of like that. Although a lot of those presentations tended to turn into a little bit more slideshow oriented as well. We'll see what this Vienna calling is going to be like. All right, Eduardo, what are your thoughts on an Elevate?
Well, I don't have like a parameter or another a FileMaker conference to compare with, but yeah, I think we got some good insights there on things we're kind of work on right now, like the performance and troubleshooting the server, I guess. And
I just realized I'm not sharing my screen here, sir.
yeah, I tend to agree with Jason, I guess, that wasn't super technical. But the only other super technical conference I attended was for regarding Vue. And not everybody coded, but one of the guys, he coded live. Like he started from scratch and he did the whole thing live. And no bugs, nothing. It worked. So
Yeah,
it's possible, but it's definitely more nerve-wracking, and I think he's more used to it. He presents a lot, so the guy who did it live. I don't know. It was nice though. It was my first FileMaker conference, so
yeah. I think I've said this several times. I think if you get an opportunity to go to these events, just do it. Even if you don't walk away with technical things, you walk away with a ton of motivation. So
Hey Charles, I'll make a comment.
yeah,
First, I couldn't find the raise hand here in the Zoom interface, so
it's okay. Nobody's looking.
um, So the second day was really good. So the second day where you keyed in on a specific thing. So I went to the AI seminar with Matt Navarre, and that was really eye-opening. And there was a lot of hands-on coding in a team environment, which I thought was very good. So it could be that you just need a longer format, a longer presentation in order to have a live coding section, and that I thought was good.
Yeah, I want to
Yeah.
pick up.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to pick up on that one too. So you showed slides from the conference, but the day afterward there were various workshops. One of them was from Matt on AI, and I was also in the same workshop as Stuart. So in addition to being able to meet some of my colleagues like Stuart and Michael again, the AI seminar, and maybe Eduardo can talk about the one that he went to, or the AI workshop with Matt, was excellent. For me, you mentioned a lot of the AI concepts and things, but a chance to actually get to see a lot of the different concepts over one short period of time, and in the file that he gave us to allow us to interact and work with, and a chance to actually kind of bounce some ideas off of AI with, colleagues like Stuart, would just excellent, and would definitely one of the two key highlights for me was, number one, the AI workshop, and number two, getting a chance to meet in person many of the members of the team that I've worked with for years.
Right. Yeah, that's Jason's been with us for 7 years, over 7 years. I've only met him twice, so it kind of worked out well. All right, I'm gonna we can put this probably to rest a little bit, because I don't want everybody to drop off thinking that we're just gonna have a kumbaya on the Toronto conference. We're just excited to finally have something in kind of our neck of the woods. That's all. So I want to talk about some findings that I've um, come into with FileMaker, and some things that we can use to optimize our FileMaker apps. And then secondarily, I want to jump into talk a little bit about N8N and some things there. So recently we had some performance, well, we still have them technically, performance issues with BetterForms, primarily saving with large payloads. And this has never been an issue before, but as people build bigger and bigger things and they put a lot of stuff into it, they pack a lot of stuff into one page, are arguably too much. And what I mean by a lot of stuff is like maybe 400, 500K of data. Now, generally, you wouldn't really have that much data in most apps. You'd split that up into files or pages or something. The browser itself can handle that fine, but FileMaker chokes a little bit. It cacks out a little bit there. And I want to tell you a little bit about the areas that we've seen performance things, and because BetterForms on the back end, or at least part of the code, is the same app as what you have. So I'll tell you about some of the areas where we see things when you're dealing with large payloads. I'll start with the workflow that we've run into, which is a save type workflow. So as I think everybody knows, the data comes into, I'll just grab some kind of a hook key, doesn't matter here. Data comes in from the BetterForms cloud into the inbox, into the left-hand side. Then it jumps out to this is an example file, but it jumps out to the business file, and then it comes back in here, and then it goes out. So there's a bunch of spots that can be potential delays. There's how fast can you get the data from the browser to our data center? That's the first chunk of latency. Then how much time does that data sit into our data center before it gets sent to your FileMaker server? And while it's doing that, we have to dynamically fetch credentials and decrypt credentials on the fly to access your FileMaker server. So that has to happen. And that takes up a little bit of time, 5 milliseconds or 2 milliseconds, depending on whether it's like cached or not. And then how long does it take to go from our data center to your FileMaker server? Then how long does FileMaker take to create the file? Because when we write a record in BetterForms, what's happening is the cloud is actually writing a record, creating a record in this inbox. right? It's accessing the XML gateway or the data API. It's going to a layout and it's creating a record and it's putting all of the data into this field, into this raw field, this payload field that says raw here. And that takes some time, and that's before we even start to measure this time over here, the time that you see here, this call time. So there's time to get it in. If you're using the XML gateway over the data API, there's a slight difference in time. It's not really that high, but there is a bit difference because it has to be converted from XML to data. There's different types of overheads that are in there. Even we even experimented with the OData connector and found that the OData can create records really fast, but it runs scripts really slow, right? And that's one of the things that we noticed. We said maybe we should add that API in as a gateway. So there's a little bit of time in there, but that's actually fairly negligible. Not negligible. It still counts as time. In a big, huge payload, it could be 50 milliseconds, you know, so that's a 20th of a second or so. So it actually starts to add up. You start to feel that. Then the record has to get created. Then BetterForms runs a script. That script fires up. It jumps through a series of other scripts, maybe 4 or 5 layers, 3 or 4 layers, something like that deep. And then finally, there's a single egress point from between the two files, right? And that's the thing that you configure over here. So that sits in between the two files here. And there's some other stuff connected up here. And to run that script, to call that script in the other file takes time. And because it's getting passed as a script parameter, there's some transfer time between the two. So I'm going to give you just ballpark numbers here. And let me just pull up my notes here. And just to give you an idea. So you can have this call that could take 14 seconds. Let's say a big, huge payload because all kinds of stuff is happening. If you don't call this file and you shunt that out, you just run through, just that alone can still take 3 or 4 seconds, right? So a good chunk of time is used in creating this record. So if you can get away with not saving big chunks of data at once, you really increase the performance of a system. Calling a script from one script to the other can take time too, and even perform script, right? So just calling from one script, performing with a big payload as the script parameter is pretty expensive. It's much cheaper to throw it into a global. Now, generally, yeah, you shouldn't use globals, but don't forget, BetterForms session is unique just to that. That session might be somebody was just posting this in the support just a few minutes ago, Garrett. But that session gets reused for the next person, but they're not used at the same time. So that global variable is managed. So if you can keep the stuff in the global, it's actually faster than passing it as a script parameter. If you pass something as a script parameter, we as a coding design pattern, we always embed that in a JSON object, and probably everybody does the same thing. You call one script even between here and here, or you call some script between some service and something else, and you pass that as a JSON object. If you have a big payload, and it's really nice to have it as a JSON because you can extend it, right? You can add more stuff into there without breaking your script API. But that does come at a cost. The passing something as an argument in a big JSON payload inside another payload comes at a cost. In our case, it was costing a couple seconds, so that's another couple seconds gone just in that alone. We also noticed somehow, somewhere along the line in one of our versions, maybe somebody for debugging, when they created a new record, if you go into your helper file and you go into this raw section here, you'll notice it's formatted. Shouldn't be formatted because the formatting is physically bigger file, and it takes processing power to format that. This is our master helper file. This is the source one. So you'll notice this one doesn't have that formatted. A couple more milliseconds. Right in this particular case, it's really mounts up when you have a big file though, big thing to format. So if you can, try not to ever format your stuff, and generally speaking, you shouldn't anyway because it's just bigger, right? It adds that extra white space. All of this space in here has to come along for the ride. Perform script, I mentioned. If you can send it raw, better. If you just keep it as a variable, if it's already in that variable, even better. I mentioned two Friday Lives ago about if you are doing JSON encoding or JSON get element, I should say. Let me grab something here. I'm just going to find don't worry about what this script does. It doesn't really matter. Let me find just something something like this. Okay, so here's an example of typical script. It grabs some parameters at the top. It does something. It exits with something else. If you're grabbing it, in this case, we're grabbing the data of a global variable, and it's grabbing a path here. If you have to grab a bunch of stuff from that deep path, I think this is pretty common knowledge, grab the object above, parse it out, or pre-parse it, and then process it from there. With FileMaker 20, version 22, FileMaker 2025, the JSON parsing is significantly improved. And I showed some slides, and you can watch those from our last Friday Live. And it's significantly improved where if you grab the data out of a JSON, you put a JSON, you parse JSON into a variable. So you stick it into a variable. And when you stick it into a variable, it goes from an object type or a class of text into a JSON object, a native JSON object inside FileMaker. And then you pull the data from there. It's much, much, much quicker. So if you can grab the stuff, instead of grabbing the stuff from a field each time, or from switching fields, field A, field B, field A, field B, grab it always from the same field. Even better, grab it from a variable. Even better than that is break it down into chunks and grab it out of those as well. Those things are taking up a ton of time in terms of processing, is what we were finding. We don't have a ton of read-write activity in BetterForms as an app. We got anywhere between, on the low side, maybe 5 and 10 users, to the high side around 40 or 50 users at any given time. And so we don't see, I'll get to your question in just a quick second, Stuart. So we don't see a lot of that happening, but we do a lot of concurrency. So we're doing, you hit save, there's 5 things that are happening, because we want to be able to quickly refresh your page before you have a chance to go over to that tab and see it. We'd like to get that refreshed, and that does take some time. Stuart, you had a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to get a little more clarity on what you were saying about setting a variable with your whole JSON object at the top of your script. So if you were trying to get an element from a JSON object that's passed into a script, you would say set a variable, either it's global or local, set a variable to what was passed into the script parameter, as opposed to in your JSON, in your set variable, individual variables like function name in the one you have on the screen. Instead of saying get it from BF payload, I was just talking about what was on your screen there.
Yeah. I'm just pulling something up there.
Okay.
Okay, I'm not surfing while you're talking.
Right. So what I was just saying is set your get script parameter to a variable first, and then pull from that variable for all the JSON elements you want. Would that be faster?
Yeah. So
then referencing get script
let's go on the assumption that anything we talk
set
about,
variable script steps.
Let's go on the assumption that anything we talk about is for the next version of FileMaker.
Oh,
right?
so it's not current.
Some of the stuff is current, but why dwell on that when you should be upgrading it whenever it is anyway? There's always other performance improvements and things like that. So let's look at that. So here's an example of fetching data here, and these first 2 here are current. This one's next, if you will. So right here, you can see he's grabbing data from JSON1 and JSON2. These are 2 different fields. Could be like, an actual field. This is not really great naming. And he's grabbing the name key out of JSON1 and JSON2. There's no help from DB data. DB data is the object type. You think, you have string. We deal with string, number, date, timestamp, container, or binary, right? Those are data types, right? Within FileMaker's innards, there's what they call their DB data. And when you're fetching this, it's fetching it out of here as a text object, because it's stored, at the end of the day, everything's stored as text. So it's fetching text out of here. Then it has to convert that text to JSON and then pull it into this name key. Then you're going to this one, the second field, and it's doing the same thing. So this is sort of a worst case scenario. BetterForms. FileMaker already has some caching, some optimization. So if you grab things out of the field as JSON1 and JSON2, it's already converted this particular field internally in parallel to the text. It's created a JSON object. So you're pulling that out of there, and that's cached. By the sounds of it, it's not saved permanently. And then you go to the next one. So group these things together if you're doing that. But
Oh, okay.
even better is to do a method like this one here, where you're fetching the first one and putting it into an object, and then fetching out of that object afterwards. But again, like anything, unless you have an issue with it, like why lose sleep? You know?
No, I was talking about when
So-
you're passing in script parameters. So would you reference get script parameter in each one of your set variable steps, or just like in option 3?
Yeah, that's a good one. I
set your
wouldn't-
JSON1 to get script parameter and then reference JSON, the variable JSON1 in all of your set variable
I
steps.
can't speak on that but I can make probably a educated guess, and that object is a DB data object that they're passing in. And once it's been parsed once, it probably already stays that way. But that's an easy one to test, right? Get UTC microseconds and do the comparison, right? Very easy to test. All right. So those are some of our findings. I don't know. I hope that helps helps you guys. And if you have other things that you've noticed that make performance enhancements, I'd like to hear about that as well. One of the things that we'll be introducing, and this is going to be part of the last bit of optimizations, is when we do see a user with a big payload, we're going to delay that payload. So there will be a cost that you won't get that instant refresh. It'll be maybe a second later. But by delaying that, we can return the call and we can offload that to a later period of time so that we're not overloading things. And we'll just do that selectively with big payloads. Any questions about that? Thoughts?
I noticed something once that made a big difference on a particular app I was using. I can't remember all the exact circumstances, but I found that I could improve performance dramatically by putting a set field within a if condition and only doing it if the before and after value are different. So comparing the value had a very low cost, but running set field had a high cost.
That's interesting.
How much you're putting in the field, but it made
that's kind of interesting. Are you reading the field before you write it?
Yeah, the if would be referencing the field. So you are loading.
So if first name equals, if first name doesn't equal $name,
yeah,
then set field first name to $name.
Yes.
Gotcha. That's really, really interesting. We use as a technique, we use just a kind of we call it universal CRUD. It's technically a CRU, not the CRUD though. And basically this is all just preamble to get good data. But right here, what we do is we iterate over the JSON object and we write to it. But if you're seeing a big difference, that would be really interesting to see that we should add a comparison. If it never changed, why bother updating it?
Yeah, especially if this particular use case ends up being that a lot of them turn out being the same most of the time. Yeah, that would be really interesting to just try an A/B test on just adding that condition.
Yeah, that's really
report back in
interesting.
the next Friday Live.
Yeah, we've actually seen similar things to Jason. The reason we were initially doing it was not to change modification dates with the sync product, but it actually increased performance too, because sometimes you weren't even doing anything.
And you weren't, yeah. So you were like tickling or not changing a date or.
Yeah. So we would always do the compare first to see if they were the same before we would write anything.
Right.
Definitely some performance increase.
Yeah, that's something that definitely we can add into this thing here. We use this all the time, and honestly, I don't think it's been modified in quite some time, 21 maybe. But it works as a technique. It works really, really well. It just makes life really easy.
I think there is also some performance. I'm not sure how old it is, but I I heard once that we have in FileMaker we have that Draco engine and all those layers on top, right? There is the script engine is higher than the Draco engine, etc. And I think when you pass a parameter, the script parameter, and you do a calculation inside your script parameter, it's actually much faster than doing the same calculation in the script itself, because it's closer to the Draco engine. So
So
I
you're
never tested
saying,
it.
from understanding, I'm understanding, you got some preamble here, and then we have normally perform script, and then I'm passing some param. So I could do a calculation here,
Correct.
right?
And that is faster than putting it in the final script itself, right?
So
even when
that's
you tend to, if you're not switching if you do the perform script and you pass it to the next script, and you're on the same layout, you tend to say set or get field or set field or whatever in that script, right? And if you do it in the parameter before the script, it's actually faster than in the script itself.
Okay, I think I lost it. So
Okay,
it's not this then. It's not calculation then call.
Well, you do here a perform script, right? And let's say you go to some layout, or you are on a layout, or that perform script must do something on a layout.
Yes.
Inside that perform script, inside the script that you want to perform, you can have a set field, or do some action with a calculation in it. But when you do the calculation already here in the parameter and then pass the result to that script, it's a faster solution than waiting for you to be in that
so
script.
It sounds right. So it sounds like the calculation happens. Let's just say I'm going to put a function here for calculation. The calculation, say, happens at this layer, maybe. I'm not sure, because somebody's going to watch this and I'm going to get a bunch of emails after this probably. But and you're saying maybe the read write is happening down here, and if I can just pass that data, it's better than me having it to come back up to here and come back down again in the second script. So first script is here, second script is there. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many little things. And, again, unless it's an issue, where this is the first time in 7 years that I've ever had to even compare any JSON stuff, and we deal with, that's all we do is JSON things. I've never had any issues. Yeah.
If I may, I just wanted to add a point on, I believe it was Jason's comment about the compare. I think it should be used with caution too, because I believe there's only the payload, large payloads being compared in FileMaker. I think it's only so many characters that would be compared before it starts putting out false outputs.
So you're saying, okay, so the script calculation field itself has a limit of, I don't know, 30K or something, but the variable size, the length of a variable. Possibly. But what Jason was saying is at the field level. So unless you're saving a big payload of data, if you're saving first name, last name, those kinds of things, they're probably going to be well within.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really, it's interesting. That's a couple takeaways there to absorb. Alrighty. Any other thoughts on JSON stuff before we jump off topic? I want to talk about something. I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about MCP, which is this new buzzword that all of the YouTube kids are talking about, and what it is, and if it has any relevance to us. And then I want to talk about some of the other protocols that are coming out in terms of AI, and how you can kind of dabble in some of this stuff today. So MCP is this, I don't know what your YouTube feed's like, but mine, it just blasted with all of the same stuff. It's that and politics. And I got a ton of this. Oh, MCP, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing. So, okay, what's MCP? So MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. And any protocol is just an agreed way of doing something, right? There's generally no new technology with a protocol. It's just, we're going to agree to use that. So it's not a new technology, unlike people are thinking it is. And what it is it's a protocol that's come out with by Anthropic. When you're using an LLM and your LLM is going to call functions, it's going to call tools. You say, well, what is that? Let's talk about that first. A large language model normally just returns text. But if you could train that large language model to say, here's a list of tools. One of them is get invoice. One of them is get personal information. And this is how you call that tool. It's not really a tool, but this is how you call the tool. This is the API for it. The tool's name is called get person, and it takes a first name or a last name or an ID field, for example. That would be the definition of your tool. So everybody started coming up with this tool use, right? The OpenAI, Anthropic, Gemini, all of the frontier models. And that made the model so much more powerful because now they can actually have true agency. Prior to that, you'd have to say, if you want to do something, format it in this little special way, and my code will pick that little special way out. It'll use some pattern that it regexes, and it'll grab that out, and it would invoke the tool. That's in fact how we do some of these stuff in BetterForms. But if you remember from about a year and even 6 months ago prior, getting quality JSON out of an LLM was quite challenging. And getting it to return JSON and not saying, here's your JSON at the end, or sure, I'll create your JSON and then produce it. Getting it to follow instructions was really, really challenging. So they come up with this idea of calling functions. So since you have some appliance, let's say your FileMaker server, and that server might have some functions, get invoice, print invoice, increase inventory, that kind of thing, some various functions that you want to have, very similar to an API. But you want to have your LLM control these functions. You need to present those functions in a format that's readable by your LLM. So MCP is a consistent format for that, right? It has a few other things involved as well. It has this ability to discover. So basically what happens is you have your LLM sitting here and it's doing the streaming. You're talking to it through your chat, right? So here's your chat here, and you're talking through your LLM, and you're sending this information. How many people are here? How many people are age 27 years old? The LLM says, oh, I have a tool. So I'll call this tool, and that tool can be in your database, DB, and that's a rad way of writing a D. And it'll call that and it'll fetch that. But what if you have other tools? I have QuickBooks and I have Slack and I have Stripe and I have all these other tools. I really want to just give them access to my LLM within reason. I want to do that. So now I can say, find the 27-year-olds and tell me what they've purchased in the past year, right? And then push that answer into Slack. So this is something that MCP allows you to do. It's this communication protocol along this layer here, right? So it's the ability to build these boxes that are called MCP servers, and those servers, effectively a FileMaker server in our talk, those servers expose a number of functions. Those functions can be something like get invoices and so on. The LLM doesn't know anything about what the functions are. So it does a special call and it says, give me a list of all your tools. And then your box, your FileMaker box or whatever it is, would say, here's the tools I have, right? The Slack box would say, I can post a message, I can get a message, and I can join a channel or something like that. And your FileMaker one does different things. And your email one might say, I can send a me email, and I can search for emails, and I can return an email. So it has a list of these functions. Present them all through MCP, and now you can read them. Why do you want to have this, or why it's become relevant, is because we jump around models all the time. So we experiment with models. And if you're using much AI, you're using OpenAI, sometimes you're changing the model at the top. I do often. The odd time I'm jumping into, well, not too much for Gemini as a daily driver of AI, but sometimes I'll use Claude as well. So I can jump between these models, have the same set of tools, and they can all talk to it. Great idea, right? So that's all it is. It's not a thing that's going to save the world, but it's a thing that makes just stuff easier to use. So that's what MCP is, and we'll get into this a little bit. There's a couple other protocols I want to talk about as well that are emerging. Another one's called A2A, or agent to agent, and this one come up with by Google. And this is, again, when you have an LLM and I want your LLM to talk to my LLM, and I want the two of our LLMs to talk with the same on the same protocol. So basically, I say my message is in an array and it's called messages, and my action is called send message or something like that. So it has a consistent protocol, and this is all that this one is doing. It's between two LLMs. So MCP is between LLM and tools. A2A is between two LLMs. And there's one new one that just came out like literally last week, and it's called AGUI, and it's agent user interaction. And this is one between agents and front ends. And this is the one that's kind of interesting, almost. So this one's basically is a consistent way of building a front end that can talk to a back end to some brains, some LLM, and it always knows the right key names and things like that for streaming. So that's all these are. So we introduced our streaming API. It's experimental. Well, it's not really experimental, but we've introduced it. Nobody uses it but us. But we've made that available about a year ago, or I say maybe a little bit longer. That we could have streaming. So you can build streaming apps. That uses a variation of this protocol to communicate with. This wasn't available at the time, so we have our own mechanism, but it's the same. Effectively, it's exactly the same thing there. And you don't effectively don't have to worry about it too much. So let's jump back to MCP now and say, well, what can we do with that? And I'm going to use N8N, which stands for Nodemation. If you've ever seen Kubernetes, sometimes it's K8S. Kubernetes is sometimes written like this, and the 8 is the abbreviation of letters in between. You also see internationalization, I18N. You'll see sometimes internationalization, the word, written like that, because it shortens it down. It's kind of, I guess, a cool thing. Well, N8N is the same thing, right? So I'm going to jump to our N8N instance here. And we have a number of flows, and you guys see these flows all the time. If you jump to, let me just pull something up here quick. If you jump to, where is it here? So you'll see our N8N will periodically post stuff like this in here into Slack. So it'll do that. Sometimes when you see a thread, for example, when you see a thread, here's Garrett's very recent thread. And if we look, and what we'll do is every now and then, about once a week or so, we'll look through the threads and we'll say, oh, this is a good one to archive. And we have a command that we run, and it'll take this entire thread and it'll archive it. And it uses N8N to do this complex thing, and it moves everything across into our forum, and it'll post it, and it'll say, here's the link. So N8N is an automation platform, and the little blocks in the automation platform, and I'll just jump to one of them here. Here's one that's internal to our team. And this one here is triggered by some timers, and these are very similar to other automation platforms. N8N has a few uniquenesses to it. Biggest one is they've done a ton of work in their resources and discovery of what the objects and the data looks like and stuff. But in this particular case, it's grabbing some data. It's going to Teamwork, which is our project management software. It's building up some data, and it's posting it into Slack. You can see some stuff that was probably taken apart by previous developers. We have different people in our team who've played with this. So, and this runs I think once a day, and it produces a little thing and says, hey, this is where our billable hours are, and this is where our team is, and stuff like that. And we use it automated. So it's pretty good. It's a really good tool. Just a quick show of hands. How many people already use N8N? I don't want to go too much into it if everybody's already using N8N already, but is there anybody who is or using Node-RED, for example?
I started using it 2 weeks ago now. It's awesome.
So just a couple people. Okay. Do you want me to talk a little bit more about N8N, or do you want me to go into some other stuff?
N8N would be great.
Me
All
too.
right.
Yeah, like it.
Okay. So here's the gist. I'll give you the rundown. There's tons of videos, like absolutely tons of videos. Eduardo and I talked to the developer when he was one person. I guess, I don't know, how long ago was that? Maybe about 4 years ago or something?
Yeah, a long time ago.
We were looking for alternatives, and we still sort of are, but we were looking for alternatives for FileMaker for BetterForms. So we talked to the author of N8N and said, well, what does it take to embed this into BetterForms as the backend? So this is how you would, you'd go into something like this, and this is how you would write your hooks. And we talked to him then, but he's grown quite a bit since then. And we also have Node-RED as well, but I think it's only used for one or two things, so we just haven't shut it off yet. So here's the gist of it. You want to create a workflow, and it's pretty simple. I've already gone through ahead of time, and in other workflows, I've set a bunch of credentials. These are credentials for various APIs that I've had, and I can add different ones. We could quite a few in here because different nodes and things like that. And I go and create a workflow. And if I want it to be a webhook, we can start off and we can say, I guess webhook. There we go. And as soon as I open up, this is the details for the webhook, and I can specify the endpoint or the path here. It can actually be programmatic, even an expression, so you can make it dynamic. How do I want to authenticate that? I can put some authentication on this endpoint and so on. And then I want to create that webhook, and maybe I want it to do something. So there's a whole bunch of different tools that we can get it to do. We can get it to, what is it, calculation or formula? I think it's formula, code there. So we can get it to do some code in here. And then after that, I could maybe take that code and maybe post it to Slack. I'm not going to actually build anything here. Not in this one anyway. Oops. So Slack is create a channel. Let's see, post. Is there a post in here? Post. Send message and wait for response. Oh, that's interesting. So we'll do that one there. So now I can send something to Slack. So what would happen here is when this goes live, that would be an endpoint of my server. It would do some kind of calculation in here, and then it would send it out to Slack. Very similar to what you can do in Claris Connect and all of those types of Zapier and those types of products. The difference is this one, I think, is a little bit more powerful in terms of the community support and in terms of building and constructing a bunch of different flows. If you want to use N8N for yourself, it's open source technically. Let's try doc, something like this, so I can get the actual site. Yeah, so it's n8n.io. You can, these are the docs, so let me just try the actual site. But you can also have a paid plan as well, and I think there might even be a free trial here. So it's about €20 a month. They're located in the authors in Germany. Really nice, really pleasant app to use. That's the gist of it, right? That's sort of a little bit of how we use it there. We don't have a paid plan. We run it on a DigitalOcean server that costs around $7 a month, I think, $8 a month roughly for that. It's a small droplet. And there's some instructions on their site on how to set that up. It's not too hard. It's a few command lines you cut and paste and you're up and running. Periodically, if you are managing it yourself, you do have to update the operating system once every 2 or 3 years or something like that. Maybe if you want to get access to the newest nodes, you'll have to add those. So what N8N has done is they've said, okay, well, let's open this up to the community. So in settings here, in settings, you can jump to these things called community nodes, and you can add community nodes into your app. It's pretty easy. You can search for them. So you click install, and let's say I'm looking for something for FileMaker is already part of the main nodes, but let's say I'm looking for some kind of edge case. I don't know. I'm going to type in Docker, something like this. Maybe I want something to manage that can manage Docker. Right? I can go through. I can find these different nodes. I have to find the right one. You literally copy the line of the NPN name there, paste it in here. It'll automatically download it and install it. Really nice. So one of the things we've been playing with, and I'll just touch on this quick, and then I'm going to jump back to the MCP stuff here, is let's go back to here and overview. And did I save this? Yes, I did. Here is one of the things we've been playing with, and I'm not going to demonstrate this today because it's taken apart right now, but I'll give you an idea of where some things that we're looking at. If you put in BetterForms, BetterForms, and I'm just going to kind of connect a few things up really quick here. BetterForms hook, and you'll be able to build hooks like this. This will be your effectively your helper file. You'll connect the log up onto here, and you'll build your hooks onto here, and that's it. Now you can connect BetterForms to anything you want in the back end because you can pick other databases. You'll be able to pick things like MongoDB, and you'll be able to connect those databases up to the back end onto BetterForms here. Jason Wood of our community did an experiment a number of years ago, and he basically used Node-RED and connected it right up to BetterForms as it stands right now. It just emulates FileMaker, but we'll have some of these. This is sort of back burner project, but we'll have this available in terms of a community node that we contribute back as well. And now you'll be able to build front ends for these kinds of things. So that's the gist anyway. That's the gist of what N8N can do. They do some other really nice things in there as well. Is when you're building some workflows. I'm just going to go to actually I'll do one. I'll do another one here just quick here. And I'm going to build an AI agent. So I want to agent. I want to build an AI agent, and they've done a really nice job with this. I literally just say connected. I don't have a trigger yet, and I'm just going to start with this here. So I got this AI agent, and then I will connect a model up to this. So I'm going to use OpenAI because I think we already have credentials in here. And I'm going to pick the model. I'm going to pick 4.1, which I think is a pretty good model for API related things. And that's it, right? I think it automatically uses my account credentials that I have in here. It says, oh, you already have an account. We'll by default use that one. I can add some memory. I'm going to use the memory, simple memory. This is going to be basically my chat history. It's an array of 5 or 10 items in here. And I can test it out. And I say, hello. Let me just see if this is working right. And they have some kind of neat animations in here. And let me see. Hello, how can I help you? So there's a very simple agent, right? And I want this agent to be able to do some stuff. So let's build it out a little bit more. So let's build out Slack. And Slack, it already uses our token that's already in N8N. Tool description. This is the description that's going to tell the AI. I'm going to leave it to set automatic. Their descriptions are not great, but I'll leave it. Resource is message, and I'll send a message to a channel, channel from a list, or I can have the AI generate a channel. So I'm going to let the AI generate the channel. Simple message, that's fine. In the message text, I'm going to let the AI decide what that is. Okay, and let's see if this works. I'm just going to pull up our Slack here, and it's called General Support. All right, and Send hello developers. Send hello developers message to the Slack, and what was it called? General. So is it a hyphen or is it a now this is zero prompting, okay? So I'm just a zero prompt general hyphen support. Some of these are underscores. That's why I had to check here to the general support. I haven't done this one before, okay? So this is not like a pre-rehearsed and I'm just putting this stuff together. But let me just save this here too, because I might have made some changes. And let's try this out. Hold on, it's always better if you have the stuff like sitting in front of you live. It's more exciting when if it works. So you can see it's gone back and hello developers. Now, the only thing I've done is I've set up credentials ahead of time and somebody's responded to it. Now, we don't have anything to respond to this, but we can set up a listener that can listen back, right? But you get an idea. It's pretty powerful, okay? Now, that's AI doing that. So I could say to the AI, go and get me all of the ABCs from something and then send that and post that into Slack. And then I could put a timer on that to trigger it all the time. So it's pretty easy. I think it's a pretty polished application. And it says to be sent. You can turn off that little bit of the automated with stuff, but that gives you an idea of how you wire these things up. All right, and you can build these AI agents that are like that. So now I can connect other things like we have. I don't want to do some of the items, but we'll do. Let's do Slack again. And I want to build a little bot. And this time I want to messages. I don't want to send, I want to get or read them. Let me just see, it's thread or breezer group, start channel, resources, channel, file, message. I think it's message. Delete, get permanent search, maybe search. Send, wait, update. Well, that's interesting. You can update the message. I thought there was one that you can get all the messages. So I can say, and I'll give you an example of what I'm working on here when in my spare time. Let me just show you a different one here. So I'm working on a support bot. Okay. And the support bot, what we want to do as a community is we have a ton of information. People are asking questions all the time. Most of these problems have been solved, right? Now we enjoy answering the questions, but sometimes we're doing stuff and we can't really jump to it. So we want the support bot to chime in, to look up and say, hey, is there an answer to this guy's question? Garrett posted a question. Maybe there's some information on that we've already archived in the past. This is the flow that we previously used. And when you trigger this flow, it would go ahead and it would grab a message in the entire thread and all the avatars and everything like that. And it would post that message into our forum. And then when it's done, it would post back into Slack saying that I was successful and I posted it and you can continue the conversation over there. This one has the potential to do the exact same thing, but it's using AI instead. So you get an idea of the simplicity here. And in this case, we have a few different Slacks. They're all the same Slack, but the purpose or the function of the type of call changes here. So we have get all, and that can fetch channels. This can get channel history. This can get replies to a channel, posts, and info. So now we can potentially do things. Hopefully this is not broken. Just a second here. Slack trigger. Open chat here. Let me just connect this up to here. And I think I need to just make a change here. Okay. All right. Now if I say to the AI, what tools do you have? something like this. So you can see it's talking to the AI, it's generating. I have a Slack tool, I have discourse, and I have a parallel tool execution. I can perform multiple tasks at the same time, right? So discourse is our forum. So that's great. What are the topics recently posted to Slack in the past day? I think this one is one of them. So you can see it went to Slack. It did a read. I was successful. It tried to go to here again. Now this try to get some kind of channel history. You can see it trying to use things. So this is not, there's no prompting here. This is strictly, there's not in this, sorry, I'm trying to shrink this up here. There's no prompting yet. All right. Hello, developers, having better forms on hoping any suggestions. Right now, I am facing the FMP slowdown, real-time notifications count, right? Error, missing channels. All right. So these are all of the top. Now the AI can see all of that stuff, right? Can kind of watch us there. ID is very slow again today in Europe. Okay. So let's see. Has this been resolved? Has the one with, we might have to increase the memory here, but has the one with error being resolved? Let's see. Normally this stuff would run on its own. You probably wouldn't be prompting it like this, right? We'd write a bit of a script that go through here once a day. The thread regarding error, most objects for you has no replies in the Slack. Okay, so now we can have the bot say, okay, go look for a solution in discourse. So you can kind of see where we're going. And that's really, really powerful because you could be building this stuff like for your team. You can hang FileMaker off of here as well if you wanted to, right? But that's the kind of bot that we want to flesh out, basically, that'll monitor our Slack and provide basically better support there. Any questions about how that works?
No, man, I really, I enjoyed it. I mean, I spent a whole week on it. Came up with an awesome workflow. Come to find out, Claire Studio, you can't get the containers from, not in the current version. So I was so mad.
If you want a container, just use the data API. I'll fetch it that way.
No, but it's up in the studio. Studio, you can't get the images pulled from it. Like if somebody uploads a PDF.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is a BetterForms channel. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I could. Yeah, no, I know. But I was playing with
I was gonna kick Rusty out of this.
I was playing with something else. And man, I built it to go to Teams, Notion.
It's all good.
All this stuff, and come to find out, I spent 2 days on nothing.
But with N8N, what have you been doing with N8N specifically, though?
The Notion was huge for me. You know, you just write.
Oh, Notion, yeah. Notion's another one, right? You can fetch it to get tons of integrations, right? So we have another one here, and I'll just show you one that I was making for. MCP. All right, so actually, I'll jump to this one here now. So MCP is this mechanism that allows you to connect these tools. So I've got a bunch of tools: FileMaker, Find People, Organization, and Pipedrive. We use Pipedrive for a CRM. Stripe, Notion is our database. It can search Notion, and Slack. And I just want to make sure we're not going to post the wrong channels here. I don't think Team Tech. Okay. So this is an MCP server. There's no chat here. But that means other LLMs can connect to it. So OpenAI has a desktop app, and they said they're going to add MCP support in it, but I don't know if it has been added in. Claude does those. Claude, C-L-A-C-L. There it is. All right. So Claude here is Claude is a desktop version of a GPT. And this desktop version, oh, I got to run this here. Sorry, this is in test mode. So it has to, when Claude first fires up, I've told Claude that I have an MCP server in my N8N. So when it fires up, when it first launches, let me just try this again here. I got to make sure that this is running, yes. and it goes and checks and says, checks out, do all my tools work? So now it has tools. So I can say, what N8N tools do you have? And this is Sonnet 4 just came out. It says, oh, I got database tools. I can do this. Communication, I can do that. Web tools, I can do this. So now I can interact with this. And I'm just playing around with this for administration. So our ops manager, Madalena, she can actually go through and say, okay, when is this person, what is their subscription? What did they do this? How many apps are on the thing? And she'll be able to have access to the data from a chat type mechanism, right? And this is literally how complex it is. This is it. Right, that's it. All right, I just drag these things on. I hardly even configured them, and we have access to that. So we can say something like, I don't know what search. I don't know what this Notion one is connected to. Let me just okay. Is there a Notion table on Friday Live? Let me try that one. Let me search. So it's doing a search. You can see that this thing indicated it. Say, yes, there's a Notion table called Friday Live Events. Okay. All right. Now I only have, I think it's this search database. I don't think I have it returning the records in here, but we can easily add that in. So let's go to Notion. It's not like one tool does all functions here. Tool description, credentials from the Notion credentials resources a page. Before it was a database page, create, we want to get database page, and then the AI supplies that. And I think that's it. Okay, so I'm going to save that.
Charles, all of those nodes that you're adding there, they're specifically designed to be tools for AI?
Good question. Yeah, they are. So what they do internally, what N8N does when you're building your own node is you define a query parameter. See, they're filtered is really what it is. They're filtered from a main list. Like this tool will show up in this list, but when I grab it from here, it filters them down to tools.
Okay.
Right? That's a really good catch. Okay, so I'm going to save this, and I do have to restart this because I did make a change here. I'm going to run this in test mode again.
And
the reason it
does
has
the shape, but like they're circles, does that mean they're tools or?
Yeah. Like the non-circle ones would be like, I don't know.
Oh, they're also ends, like there's no output from them.
Correct.
That's
Yeah. So there's a FileMaker one. There's like squares. All right. So now we should be able to do this. Okay. Find the Notion database for Friday Live. And I want you to get the most recent event page info. Something like this. Let's see if this works. It will, the first time you use it, it'll ask you if you have permission to access the stuff. I think that some of that stuff will go away. Here it is here because it's a new one. And it looks like there's a bit of an error. There's an issue accessing the specific one. It's going to try it again. See if it can resolve it. Maybe it's missing some information or something. And I might have missed something in configuration as well. I don't think so, but I might have. But you get the idea how powerful this can be because you can hang your FileMaker stuff on here. Now, the takeaway here, Notion API. So there's a problem with here. Here's the database ID. And topic show status for transcription and archive. This is some stuff, internal stuff to us. Test workflow, check the Notion. Yeah, so I found the document, but I can't get the specifics for some reason. This might not be configured right. I might not be get database page. It might be another command. But nonetheless, you can do that. And then you can say, okay, summarize that and send it in, post it in my Slack channel, right? That kind of thing. So really, once you integrate AI with these automated workflows, it's such a game changer because now you can have something that can handle code and it's so simple, but if you had to build this workflow and hard code it, it'd be almost not impossible, but it'd be a lot of work. Somebody's a day or two's work just to build that in there. Any questions about that stuff? How are we doing for time? Man, we're getting
What are you
close.
doing with Find People, the FileMaker one?
FileMaker one, let's see. I don't know. I just added this last night. It was like 11 o'clock. So action, find record. So let's go first of all, let's look at the FileMaker credential. Okay. So we're going to go back to it because that'll give us some ideas. And we're going to go to the credentials. Sorry. Credentials, overview, creds, file. And I know I'm gonna flash something on the screen. No, I'm not. Okay, we're good. All right. So it's gonna go to one of our servers, a development server, and it's gonna grab a file called BF examples, and it's got a login credential just for it. All right. So let's go back to this one here. Yeah. Let's go back to here. These two panels, it's kind of a weird interface at first, but this is data coming in. Think of your helper file. This is data going out of this node. So if you're trying to figure out in JSON get element, invoice dot address 0 dot location dot name, you're going through a big arse path to get data. One of the ththings they do here is to display the data. Claire's Connect kind of does this as well. Displays the data, and you just grab the node and you can drag it in here as a merge field. I think that's pretty handy for figuring out where stuff is. All right, so its action is find records. It can create a record, find a record, and so on. The offset is if you're finding like 1 through 5 records or something like that. So, the offset and the limit. So give me the 7th record or the 200th to the 300th record. Do you want to fetch portal information back? Because FileMaker does a funny thing with that portal stuff on there. I think there's a layout that's specified. I do have a layout of people. And then here's the query. Here's the fields now. So it already knows the fields that are in the database. These are fields that are actually in my actual database. So it's gone and queried those. And I say for the value, I could hard code a value, or I could have an expression of the value. So if I wanted like greater than certain ... or, that kind of thing, FileMaker-esque. But I can also let the LLM just determine the value. So that's going to search for first name, whether you want to omit or not. So that's a found set. We're not going to make it that complex. You could add more fields into here as well. We'll leave it at that one. Do you want to sort the output? Do you want to run a script? And everything else with the data API. After sort script, before sort script. I don't know why you're not sorting in your script. I don't really get that one, but whatever. Okay, so that's kind of the gist there. And then I don't think I've made any changes, but let me just run this here. And can you search? Just see if this works here. Okay, I don't have access to FileMaker tools. There might be something in configuration here. I just did this last night, like I prefaced today, just quick. The tools I have for web searching, page fetching, and Notion database. Yeah.
Couldn't you say like, don't you have a tool called Get People for this?
I don't know. Yeah, I do. I might have
Find
something.
people.
Find people. Yeah. So what is it saying? I don't have access to find. Yeah. Use what tools do you have? Web search, web fetch. Is it not seeing a FileMaker database? This is just really, I don't have okay. So it looks like, I wonder, did I restart this? Let me just do this here and let me make sure that this is all saved up in case I made some changes and rerun this. I will say there's one problem with MCP. And this is why it's going to take a little bit. You have to have some kind of desktop running app. Unfortunately, it was invented by developers, and that means there's some hoops to jump through to be able to use it well. One of them is you have to have Node installed on your computer, which sucks, right? Because that means it's not fully accessible yet to everything. As soon as it catches on a little bit more, then they'll build this stuff in and the server parts right into the device. So right now, this has to launch. It's not from a web page. It's sitting, this is their downloadable application. And to configure N8N, I had to go into the developer settings here and I had to edit a configuration that looks something, I don't know if I can make this bigger, yeah, something like this. I had to say, here is where my N8N server is. And I had to use this other program, which is a proxy between my node and does the actual calling out. Because even though they built it into here, they should just make it call out. It's so dumb that way. But I think it's because they've isolated all of this stuff up because the developer has come in and added this ability and they said, well, we're not going to fully adopt it just yet. But this would be a list of all my servers, so I could have several different ones and it'll go and find out all the tools at each one of those. So I should mention that. It's a bit of a hoop to jump through. What tools do you have? Let's see if I can see them. Yeah. Okay, so I can see them now. Okay, so it wasn't seen those. So search FileMaker for name starting with C. Let's try that. So there's an endpoint 404 message. The requested webhook MCP is not registered. Click hint test workflow. There's something wrong with this one here. It should be. I'm pretty sure I saved it, but there might be something off. But that's the gist of how it works anyway.
So I see that you have to define the layout and all that. Like, but could you build something as complex? Would you have to hand build the flow for, say, I don't know, find me the people who have ordered the most in the last week?
Okay. So you can give it access to search for more stuff, right? So you could go on a table by table basis. And this is a little bit of a drag that this is kind of scoped down to one little thing.
Yeah.
Like I can't find records layout name. I can set this dynamically by the looks of by an expression, but it has to get that data from somewhere. And I don't know if the LLM can set it. It doesn't look like you can in here. Which is a fault of whoever built this particular node.
Yeah.
Right? They should have made that dynamically settable by the table. So I can say, search this table, search that table, that kind of a thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Or this layout. Actually, technically, it's this layout. It's not the table, it's the layout. And then these are not dynamically scalable downward. They're fixed. But that's probably not so bad because for a given table, it would be nice to just specify almost anything. But I think maybe whoever made it wasn't really thinking about everybody's use case. They're thinking about their use case.
Sure.
Is my guess.
That is cool.
But you can see it's pretty easy, right? It's crazy easy, really. We were looking at this. One of the reasons why I didn't look at N8N continue too much down that road 5 years ago or whatever, what it was 4 years ago, was because there was two things. It didn't scale well at the time. It didn't scale well, and it wasn't a multi-tenant application. I still have to have this installed here. And if I use it on their paid subscription in their cloud, it gets running on my own Docker. They do that for security because you can execute code here. So it's always a potential for the code to maybe break out or something. So that was one of the things. The latency wasn't terrible. It seems to be quicker now, but it was a little slower, like 100, 200 milliseconds or something like that in a call. Edward, I don't know if you remember, but that was a consideration, I think.
Yeah, I don't recall.
And the multi-tenant ability. So, but if everybody runs their own server, you can connect up to anything, and you can, jack FileMaker into here, you can jack BetterForms into here, and it can, access that stuff. And if you have, it's another thing, but if you have, a bunch of different databases like our pipe drive and this and FileMaker and things like that, your UI in BetterForms could actually be accessing all of those different bits of data. It's not assembling them cohesively like FileMaker would, but it's definitely possible. So we're getting tight on time here. So if anybody's got questions regarding anything here, some suggestions.
Charles, I do have a question. You mentioned that the users have to have the desktop app installed. We wouldn't be able to equip a listener as an AI in order to give it access to I guess,
There
other
are
users?
other, let's see if I got it running here. There are other AIs that you can use. This is Cursor. I'm just using it to help me with our docs, but just a second here. Open folder window, a new window. Let me just see if I can do it here. Cursor you can set up Cursor to use as another type of editor, and it has MCP ability. So here's a few other ones here I have here. I'm using it there. It has MCP abilities as well. So you can say to the AI that's in Cursor, what tools you have, go do this and go do that. There's no other, you can't just connect any third, like you can't go to ChatGPT website and just say, call my tools yet. I would imagine at some point they'll say jack the tools in, but that's probably a bit of a liability for them because it's now suddenly you're getting access into their data and they don't really want that. So that's kind of the reason there. If you want to use BetterForms as an MCP server, in other words, these are connected to here, but this server here is connected to my chat. So chat talks to this and that talks to here. If you wanted chat to talk directly to FileMaker, you could do that through BetterForms through our API. There is a small caveat that is there with a certain type of data, but that will be patched in a future release because it never came up before. And but you can chat with FileMaker. When you do that, then those endpoints, instead of these endpoints here, these endpoints look like this instead. So here it's kind of hard to see, but here is a MCP tool for finding people. And here's an MCP tool for tool called add numbers. Oh, this is just adding 2 numbers. It's not exciting, but this one here to find people, and it's basically grabbing arguments and pulling it out and performing a find and returning the data back. MCP, there's a status and there's a tools list that fetches a list of all the tools you would have to define. In my case, I have hard-coded definitions of what the tools look like, but I didn't want to talk about this part too much because I just want to see if it's doable. But it may not be. You're probably going to use something like this first and then connect your FileMaker up that way. My way better. This one's way better because you can script exactly what you want. You have the entire control of the interface. Here, it's kind of, you're stuck to this thing, right? So, it also, it can run scripts, but I'd rather explicitly code out what I want. Alrighty. I don't know. I don't know if it was useful for anybody. We're just kind of winging it here. We just wanted to share some of that stuff. We'll usually kick around a little bit after, and we'll have our swag draw featuring our stylish toque model, Jason. So, and what I'm going to do is I am going to end our recording right now because nobody ever watches to the very end on YouTube anyway. But thanks, everybody. We'll see you next month.